Another brutal loss, this time to the Dallas Stars. We look at why the game flipped so suddenly and what is going on with Cam Talbot and Capo Kakinen. We find out today on Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, Locked on Wild is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, we recap yet another loss for the Minnesota Wild, 6-3 at the hands of the Dallas Stars. Alex Micheletti is here to talk about continued problems for the Wild and whether or not the Wild's deadline targets have shifted completely during this rough stretch. My name is Seth Topol, host of Locked on Wild, veteran captain of the show, and veteran content producer for pretty much every Minnesota sports team that exists over the last decade, now focusing exclusively on the Minnesota Wild. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We bring in our regular Monday co-host, Alex Micheletti. Not a victory Monday. Another loss to the Dallas Stars, and an interesting game to kind of dive into. But Alex, we're down bad right now.
Yeah, that was tough to watch. I thought Matt Dumba being back would just be the elixir to the Wild's just problems, but now the goaltending has just been horrendous. There's no sugarcoating it. I don't know what they can do with these goalies. They're just not playing with confidence, and now the number one need might be a goaltender. So we'll see, but still some time to figure it out before the 21st. So
yeah, we got a couple of weeks before the deadline, so a chance for Bill Guerin to get a look at this team leading up to the deadline. And there's no way to slice it. This team is in a skid, a rough stretch, a slump, a tailspin, whatever you want to call it. I think I'm going with tailspin, and I think Michael Russo has even used the word free fall at times, just because it happened so suddenly. Like this team was just chugging along, and the wheels just completely came off, and everything looks bad. We'll talk about the things that are actually causing this skid, but everything just looks bad right now. And it was a perfect encapsulation of the Stars game. Wild looked great for pretty much the entire first period. They had a ton of fight, a ton of energy. They were stealing the puck away from the Stars in their own end at will. Couldn't get really anything past Ettinger, but it looked great. It's like, hey, these guys are back. The energy is there. Everything is back towards what we saw at the beginning of the season when this team was one of the best in the league. And then the penalty at the end of the first period, in which Dallas scored with 2 seconds left, and the Wilds challenged goaltender interference, lost that challenge, so they went on the penalty kill again and gave up a goal to start the second period. It all fell apart just as quickly as it started. And, anybody that's been watching this team over the last 10 games, it was basically just a small sample size of what has happened to this team over the last 3 weeks right in front of us.
I mean, yeah, you couldn't have said it better. For the majority of that first period, they looked like the old Wild, and we're getting chances, and Dean said after the game too that in hindsight he shouldn't have called the challenge, and that completely changed momentum, and then the goaltending the rest of the way was awful, and a little too late on the comeback. They gotta figure this out real fast, because if they don't, then they might fall out of the playoff race, and that might you go from buyer to seller, and no one wants that. So, and that can happen like that. So, hopefully they can, like I've been preaching, hopefully they can get the full lineup back together and get the lines all straightened out, because they're still a little out of whack again. And, Jordan Greenway, hopefully it's not too long. He was placed on IR. He basically flipped, with Dumba. So, but he's been skating, so that's a good sign. So.
Well, and I believe you can retroactively put players on injured reserve. Yeah. So I would imagine procedurally that when he's ready, he can come off pretty much any time to hop in. Now, Freddie Gaudreau, it sounds like, got dinged up in the and this has been another problem too. We've seen this team when they were at full strength just really play really good hockey, and they cannot get to that point right now. It seems like every time somebody comes off injured reserve or comes back into the lineup, somebody else is out hurt, and it just every bounce, every unlucky bounce, every unlucky break, everything that could possibly happen in a bad sense is just raining down on the XL Energy Center right now.
100%. Thank goodness it's they can if Gaudreau's out, they can move Bukestad to center. Doesn't seem like they have any interest in calling up our young Austrian Marco Rossi. So looks like they would just move Bukestad from the wing to center, and and that would solve their issue, and have Mason Shaw play or call up Kyle Rao. So I think that's just what they want to do right now, and they could use a major spark, but it's good old contracts. So
yeah, they need the zap. They need they need, like, there was a shot of Nico Sturm with the smelling salts as the game was getting started. Spoke Z tweeted it out, and I responded to his tweet, and I said, I'm going to need one or two of these to get through recording this episode. But it seems like the Wild collectively as a team need a hit or two from the smelling salts. Just it seems like, and we'll talk about this coming up, it seems like the team collectively is just so, like, worn down by this goaltending. And I have the numbers over this 10-game stretch. You're going to want to be sitting down, because as bad as we think it is, infinitely worse. And, that wears on you as a team. Like, the special teams have not been great. Like, that's not breaking any news. The penalty kill has been a disaster. The power play has not been scoring. But when you're so focused on we can't allow any shot on net, because it's probably going to be a goal, because the goalies can't corral rebounds. They can't track the puck. And if there's any traffic in front of the net, good luck. It is. If it wasn't such a, like, depressing just fall to earth, it would honestly be impressive to see things flip this quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the goaltending today, especially, Capo, Jason Robertson, he's a phenomenal player, but
yeah, that
last goal he gave up before he got pulled, I mean, he just completely dropped it. That just can't happen. It's so demoralizing for a team that's trying to make a comeback, and they weren't laying down. And you saw Kaprizov, he fights till the end, which is phenomenal to see. But special teams, you nailed it. I mean, it's a nightmare. They can't on the power play, they can't even get it into the zone. They're having trouble getting everything even set up, let alone shoot the puck. And then the penalty kill, it's a disaster. It seems like the other team's going to score every single time, which is tough.
I have one thing that I observed in a difference between the Wild and Dallas with the penalty kill that I'll throw at you here in the next segment, but we're going to dive in because, like I said, I have accumulated some numbers in regards to the goaltending. It's not great. So we'll continue to just kind of soak in what is going on with this team recently as we try to figure out what needs to be fixed and what is a byproduct of the goalie conundrum. We'll continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. I'm going to be real honest. I haven't been a huge fan of supplements or multivitamins throughout my life because, let's be honest, you get up in the morning, you maybe get a little breakfast in your system, and you're out the door to work or wherever you have to go. Nobody has time to put together a pack of multivitamins or take 2 to 3 supplements. You got to have it on the go, ready to roll. But I've started taking Athletic Greens, and I have to say, it has changed my daily routine. All it takes is one delicious scoop of AG1, and you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, everything you need. It's lifestyle friendly too, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every single day to take great care of yourself. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Continuing today's episode of Locked on Wild, and again, thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. Once you're done with today's first episode and today's bonus episode of Locked on Wild, make sure your next listen is the Locked on Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NHL game and analysis with our local experts, including yours truly. Locked on Now on the NHL channel is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. Continuing today's episode of Locked on Wild, Seth Topal and Alex Micheletti just trying to come to grips with what has happened to this team. I mean, at one point, and I know this is stuff that we here in Minnesota maybe don't put as much stock into, but at one point this year, MoneyPuck.com had the Wild with the best odds to win the Stanley Cup. And all of this stuff, the number of goals that they've scored, the fact that they are near the top of the list in goals, even with this skid, that's not an accident. And I think that's what makes this stretch so much more frustrating is, especially on the penalty kill, this team is too talented to just let this continue to happen. And I noticed penalty kill wise, and I don't know if this makes a huge difference, coming from the perspective of somebody that never played hockey, which is why I'm throwing it out here. Dallas on the penalty kill, it seemed like they were making a concerted effort to attack the player that had the puck, trying to force whichever Wild player had the puck into making a decision, which over the last handful of games has been to pass as opposed to take a shot. But it seemed like Dallas was they were making a point to try to pressure whichever Wild player had the puck. And when the Wild are on the penalty kill, everybody is sucked in to right in front of the net. Like they're giving space to the players on offense, for the Stars, for whoever else. They're giving space and therefore allowing the teams on the power play to dictate and do what they want to do, largely in part because everybody up and down that roster, I'm sure, is worried that they're going to be giving up goals. But like by not forcing a team to make a decision, it seems like they're giving their opponents too easy of a time to do what they want to do on the power play.
Yeah, like I said, it's frustrating because you got that compounded with the goaltending, and so it leads to disastrous outcomes, and it even allows struggling teams to capitalize. And you saw Buffalo do that, and Buffalo got shut out by LA today, so that shows you how much seeing that result was frustrating, because that's those are points that the Wild are missing out on teams that they should be beating. And this should have been a week where probably weren't going to beat Calgary. That's just the way they were playing. I mean, Calgary beat Colorado last night. Johnny Gaudreau is he's having an MVP type season, overtime winner. Should have beat Buffalo to go with your Flyers win, and then today was a toss up. But you look at the standings. Dallas is they're right there to taking the third spot from the Wild. And Nashville beat San Jose 8-0 last night, and they're playing phenomenal. Saros has been incredible in net, and Matt Duchene and our old buddy Mikael Gramlin are having really bounce back seasons. And they have Roman Josi, just an amazing, one of the best defensemen in the league, anchoring that team. So yeah, I mean, we got some teams hot on the Wild's tail, and hopefully they can turn it around here quick, and maybe Billy G makes a move to spark the team and get them going in the right direction.
I believe it was on the TV, and I'm kind of mad at myself that I didn't screenshot it when the stat was put up on the TV. But I believe what was said was the Wild penalty kill is 14 for their last 26. And they've given up a power play goal in 11 of their last 13 games. 14 of 26, by the way, is 54%, which I don't know where they're at right now in terms of near the bottom of the league in penalty kill, but they're getting close. Like, it's just, and again, I think a lot of the problems stem from everybody just being so tight and not wanting to give up a goal, because everything that goes towards the net seems like a goal at this point. Okay. That's where I'm going to segue into the stats. Here we go. These courtesy of Nick Terhar on Twitter. Past 10 games for the Wild, their expected goals on offense, 25.38, which is 2.54 per game. Their actual goals, they've scored 32, so 3.2 per game. Their expected goals against, 26.15. Expected goals against, that is 2.62 goals per game. They have allowed, actually, 39 goals in 10 games. And I think it's 51 goals in their last 11 games that they've allowed, which is a 3.9 goals allowed per game average. And Terhar also mentions Minnesota Wild still averaging 3.2 goals per game over this stretch, although they scored 7 goals against Edmonton, having bad goaltending as well. So if you take that out, they're still averaging 2.77 goals per game in the other 9 games. Either way, the goaltending is atrocious. Special teams has to improve as well. I raise you. Minnesota Wild's goaltenders have given up 12.85 goals more than expected over the past 10 games. The only game in which they received NHL average goaltending was on February 20th when Kaapo Kähkönen faced the Oilers. Talbot has been an absolute disaster in that stretch, giving up 9 more goals than expected. The Wild, and also the goals saved above expected, that game in which was referenced February 20th, Kaapo saved 0.14 goals above expected. So it was barely saved above what he gave up. So you look at that, and some Brett Marshall does the player the performance cards after every game. Wild played well in 5-on-5 in the game against Dallas, according to his metrics. Eye test, I know, is going to be a different story, but again, offense is not the problem. You can't dig out of a 4 or 5 goal deficit every night. You can't go into the third period every game down by 3 goals. Even average goaltending at this point would, I don't know if maybe you could even manage to go like 6-4 in this 10-game stretch if you get average goaltending. It's either been like second coming of Patrick Waugh or like San Jose Sharks Devin Dubnyk over the last 10 games. There has been no in between.
No, it's been awful. I don't know how this all happened. I mean, it's crazy, both of them. It's not just one, and especially this week. I mean, they both were horrendous. So that's what makes me worried that you have to go try to find a goalie. And there's going to be some candidates out there on some really losing teams that some of these guys, they've lost their starting role, or their teams are out of it and they're going to want to move their goalies. So, Matt Murray, Simeon Varlamov in New York, maybe James Reimer if he's healthy. So there's going to be some goalies out there that the Wild could get possibly for not a whole lot of compensation. So that might be the top priority over a defenseman or a center at this point.
Yeah, remember, I long for the days where I specifically was saying that this team was a Claude Giroux away from competing with the Colorado Avalanche.
That's out the door.
Yeah, freezing cold takes. If you're listening, I got a banger for you that I just said. You can find it because the tweet is out there. Oh boy. We'll take some of those names because there are some intriguing names there that could, I think, help. Mm-hmm. And probably going to be, a deal that is the rest of this year and not beyond. So it's not going to be something that you're locked into long term, but like you got to do something. And I think you hit it pretty spot on Twitter and saying that, Bill Guerin, I'm sure, wanted to just kind of roll with the group that got them here. But I think it sends a message too that the season is so far gone that you don't even do anything. I think that sends the wrong message to this team.
100%. Yeah. I mean, they've played too well to just, throw in the towel, because this is a year where I think anybody can come out of the West. We always say, how many years have we said it with Colorado? And they've never proven it in the playoffs to go deep in the playoffs. Goaltending has always held them back. Kemper got pulled last night, so he continues to be a roller coaster. And Francois, the backup, isn't great. They can score all they want, but if you can't stop the puck in the playoffs, good luck. We've seen them get bounced, multiple times with horrendous playoff goaltending. So, and
the big equalizer in the playoffs, hot goalie.
Yes, exactly. So
we'll take a look at that all week here on Locked On Wild. We'll look at some goalie options, try to figure out what the cost is going to be, and we'll go through the stages of grief and get to the acceptance of the Wild are going to make a move for a goalie. But to finish off today's episode, we're going to take a look at the week ahead because the grind just continues. Chugging along. That homestand, though, is close. So we'll look at what is coming up for the Minnesota Wild to try to shake off this skid, and we'll do that next here on Locked on Wild. Football might be over for this season, but the NBA, March Madness, and the NHL playoffs are all close, and plenty of opportunities for you to place your bets. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds. And with the NCAA tournament on the way, plenty of information for you to pick up there as well. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. All at BetOnline, where the game starts. The month of March is here, and if you are hanging on to your New Year's resolutions, props to you. Many people have already thrown them in the garbage, but if you're trying to eat better and look better, Built Bar is here to help. If you're looking for something to jumpstart your Built Bar routine, may I recommend the Puffs. If you haven't tried the Puffs brand of Built Bars, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy. They are marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to your standard candy bar, which has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. You can enjoy Built Bars today by heading to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. And again, thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. Seth Topol and Alex Micheletti finishing off today's episode by taking a look at what is coming up for this team with a desperately needed homestand on the way. For the Wild, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. What is going on? They play Tuesday at a home against the New York Rangers, who continue to be a force out east. Then Thursday at Detroit, Friday at Columbus, and Sunday at Nashville. What do you think of the week ahead, Alex? Obviously, that Rangers game going to be a tough way to start it, but, and I use this term hesitantly, winnable games the rest of the week.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Yeah, Tuesday's gonna be fun. I'll have my Uncle Joe in town with the Rangers. And they're just on fire. Chris Kreider is just playing out of his mind right now, and Shesterkin is looking like a Vezina candidate for sure. But yeah, the rest of the week definitely winnable. Especially Detroit, but Detroit's a weird team. They give up a ton of goals, but they can score a ton too. So I mean, heck, last week and a half ago they played Toronto and gave up 10 goals. So you never know what Detroit, what you're going to get. And Columbus has sneaky been playing a lot better. And Patrick Laine is just on a flamethrower of a month and a half. And so that should be a fun game to watch for both fan bases. And Nashville, the Nashville game is going to be critical with the division matchup. And they're right on the Wild's heels for a playoff spot. So it's going to be a fun way to wrap up the week for sure.
And the Mikko Koivu jersey retirement.
Yes, if that doesn't get the crowd fired up, I don't know what will. And hopefully it brings the energy and You saw with Columbus with Rick Nash, they lost to Boston, but they took that one to the bitter end in the shootout. So it should hopefully give the Wild a big boost.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Nash jersey retirement, because sensational from what I saw. It sounds like it was just an absolute A+ event. So Minnesota Wilds, take note, do something similar for the captain.
Yeah, I can't wait for all the tributes from former teammates, and that'll be really fun to watch. And he meant a lot to the organization, obviously, and it'll be nice to see his jersey get hung in the rafters. It'll be nice to have one other than just the Wild fans one up there.
Well, at least we haven't gone the Indianapolis Colts route yet. I saw on Twitter,
playoff semifinalists.
I can't even make it up. Like, with all the stuff with the combine, Arif Hassan, who I believe is a guest periodically with Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, covers the Vikings and the NFL for The Athletic, tweeted out live from Lucas Oil Stadium, that banner exists. Like, it's an actual thing. The Colts have a banner hanging up in their stadium that says, and I think it's 2012. Well, I don't remember which year it is, but it
might
says
be 14, but yeah,
AFC finalist.
You can't make that up. That's a tough look. That's really tough.
I mean, how much did they spend to make that?
Right. And then how can their fan base be just fine and dandy with that? Did they reveal it in front of fans?
That's as useless of a banner as the Nashville Predator. Was it the Predators and the Hurricanes in that playoff series the year before? It was, I think, 2 years ago already, or last year. Both teams battled on Twitter, and like the Hurricanes had that
was cringy
tweet where they showed the banner. Oh, cringe. Yeah.
Yeah. When two teams go like back and forth with each other, a lot of times it's so cringeworthy.
Yeah. It's not something that should be done regularly, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
So hopefully the Wilds can get it figured out, but it's hard to. Everything just looks bad when you get like bottom of the barrel goaltending.
Yep.
And the Wild have for the last 10 games beyond that. And so if they get the goaltending shored up, then you can say, okay, this was bad because of the goaltending. This was bad because of the goaltending. Everybody looked just lifeless because of the goaltending. Once that gets shored up, I think we'll be on the right path to getting back to at least some semblance of the team that started the season off so hot. But that's all on Billy G. I'm sure his phone's ringing nonstop.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That, I think, is going to wrap it up for today's episode of Locked On Wild. So, again, now that your first listen of the day is done, head to our bonus episode today for a full breakdown of the round of 64 in the Locked On Madness tournament. Voting resumes tomorrow in the round of 32. Keep track on the Locked On Wild Twitter account as we try to determine who is the best Minnesota Wild player ever, thanks to the help of you, the fans. Matt Boldy. So make sure that you cast your votes. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms and wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date on everything Minnesota Wild related. Because if big news or a puck drop anywhere in the state of hockey, Locked On Wild has you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.